What's up guys, I'm Paul and welcome to the e-commerce gold YouTube channel. So in this video we're going to be comparing PrestaShop with Shopify to see which one is the better option for building an e-commerce website. And in this comparison we're going to be looking at the pricing, what you get for your money, and a quick overview of what these two platforms are like to use to hopefully give you a good idea as to which one is the one you should go for. So with the introduction out of the way, let's get this comparison started. So the first thing we're going to be looking at is the pricing, and when we start looking at the pricing it does highlight the main difference between these two platforms. This is because PrestaShop is a self-hosted platform, which means you need to buy your own web hosting and then install the PrestaShop software. They do a hosted version, but I haven't tried it out. It's also very expensive as well. But with Shopify, it's what's called a hosted platform, and basically for your monthly subscription fee, you get the website builder, you also get hosting and support and things like that included for your monthly fee. And this is the main difference between PrestaShop and Shopify, is the way they're hosted, and this is reflected in the pricing. Because as I said, PrestaShop is free. The software is completely free to use. You just need to buy some web hosting and then install it. Shopify, on the other hand, is a tiered pricing system, and it starts off with the basic one, which is $29 a month. Shopify Standard is $79 a month, and Shopify Advanced is $299 a month. There's quite a big difference between the Standard and Advanced in terms of pricing. Now, another thing that should be mentioned when it comes to Shopify pricing is the transaction fee you can pay. Now, this transaction fee is only applicable if you're using third-party payment gateways, such as PayPal, for example, and you will pay 2% on the basic package, 1% on the standard package, and 0.5% on the advanced package. So this is on top of the PayPal fees or whatever payment gateway you're using. Now, these transaction fees don't apply if you're using Shopify's own payment gateway, Shopify Payments. Also, if you're taking any offline payments such as bank transfers and things like that, these fees don't apply either. But if you're using third-party online payment gateways, such as PayPal, you will have to pay this additional transaction fee. Right, so next up, let's talk about the features that both of these platforms offer. Now, I'm not going to go too much into detail in this video because it's basically just going to be me reading off the screen, which will be incredibly boring. But just an overview, both platforms are pretty good when it comes to features as standard. Even though PrestaShop is completely free to use, it's free software, it does come with a good set of features, as you can see on screen, from e-commerce tools to marketing tools to reporting and analytics and things like that. And there's a good selection of payment gateways as well. Now, one thing I do just want to talk about is PrestaShop's add-on marketplace, because this may be very useful when you're building your PrestaShop store, because you may need additional features and functionality that's not included as standard. And PrestaShop's add-on marketplace has over 4,000 additional modules that you can install on your PrestaShop store. And they cover a wide range of different categories, from things like payment gateways, marketing, product page customization, things like that. There's lots of different options out there. Now, when it comes to the modules that are available, there is a small selection of free options. There's around about 150 that are free to use, but most of them are paid options, and you pay annually for these. So you may have quite a big upfront cost when it comes to buying these modules, but the renewal fees are usually discounted, and it depends on the module and the developer of that module how much that discount actually is. But when you're buying it for the first year, you will pay the highest price for it. So when you are building your PrestaShop store and you do need specific features or functionality, you may have quite a high upfront cost. So what about Shopify? Well, Shopify, as the biggest name in the industry, you'd expect it to have a lot of tools, and it does. As you can see on screen, once again, there's a good selection of tools, from e-commerce tools, marketing and SEO, reporting and analytics, and there's a good selection of payment gateways. Just remember, you do pay that transaction fee if you're using third-party payment gateways. You only have that waived if you're using the Shopify Payments option. And there is the Shopify App Store. And they cover a range of different categories, from dropshipping integrations to integrating with other marketplaces, SEO tools, marketing, lots of different options that are available. And there is a difference between the way the Shopify apps work and PrestaShop's modules. The first one is there's a lot of Shopify apps that offer either a free package or a free trial, which means you can test them out before paying for them to see whether they're going to work for your store or not. The second one is the way they're built, because Shopify's apps are built on a monthly basis, not annually the way they are with PrestaShop. And this gives you a bit more flexibility over the options and features that you have on your Shopify store, because you might be using an app to start with but realize it's not actually what you need for your store, and you can just cancel that subscription and move on. You haven't got that commitment that you've paid for a year for it, and you feel you should get the use out of that app. So in terms of billing in this way, it does give you much more flexibility over the features and functionality of your store, which is why I would give the edge on this one to Shopify. So next up, let's talk about theme selection and theme customization, because this is hugely important. You want your store to look good. So what do these two platforms offer? Well, if we go into PrestaShop, as standard, there's one free theme you can choose from. So if we go into design, click on theme and logo, the only free theme you have available is the classic theme. If you want an additional theme that's available through PrestaShop, you're going to have to pay for it. So if we visit the theme catalog, it will take you to the PrestaShop add-on marketplace. And if you look through these themes, they're all paid options. There's no additional free ones available directly from PrestaShop. Now, if you go outside of PrestaShop's official marketplace, there is a range of developers that do develop PrestaShop themes, and there's a larger selection of free themes available that you can download and then upload to your PrestaShop store. But if you want one from the official marketplace, you're gonna have to pay for it. As you can see on my screen, the prices are displayed in pounds, but they'll be displayed in your local currency wherever you are in the world. And prices start from around about $100 and goes upwards from there. And as you can see, there's a big selection. There's nearly 2,000 to choose from, but they are all paid options. But what's it like when it comes to customization? Well, PrestaShop isn't great as standard. So if we go back into our PrestaShop dashboard, in fact, we'll close the marketplace. We'll see what kind of options we have when it comes to setting up our store. So in the main theme and logo, you can change which theme you've got actively running on your PrestaShop store. Then you can change the header logo, the mail logo, and the invoice logo, and your favicon. But it's pretty limited on options here. So if we go into page configuration, that looks like it's a theme customizer. And in some ways it is, but in some ways it's not either. It's quite frustrating to use because even though you can go through and change the different things that are available in these sections, as you can see, it's prompting me to install additional modules. And if I go on to configure any of these modules, it takes me to a different page. So if I configure the feature products, it takes me through to this page. Then if we click on back, it doesn't take me back to the theme customizer. It takes me to the module manager. And this is where it's really frustrating to try and customize a PrestaShop theme because you're just going backwards and forwards between pages. It just doesn't flow all that well. And even if you go into advanced customization, you can't really do a lot. All you can do is download your theme, edit it, and then upload it. That's all you can do. And for that, you need knowledge of HTML and CSS. So it's not really an advanced customizer in that sense to me. But what does Shopify offer when it comes to theme selection and customization? Well, in November 2021, Shopify rolled out their OS 2.0, which included a new set of themes and a new customizer that really did change the game for Shopify and really brought it into the modern era when it comes to customization. Now, when it comes to the new selection of themes, there's 4 ones that are free and there's 65 paid options that range from $150 up to $350, which is slightly more expensive than the old themes. But you do get the new customizer, which is so much better. But if you go outside Shopify's own ecosystem, so if you went to a marketplace like Theme Forest, for example, you'll find a selection of over 1,000 additional themes that you can use. And a lot of these are set up for the new OS 2.0 as well, which is absolutely awesome. So let's look at the customization options that have come with this new OS 2.0. So for this, we're going to click on Customize. Dawn is one of the new OS 2.0 themes. If you scroll down, Debut is one of the old school themes. So we're just looking at the new OS 2.0 for this video. If we click on Customize, it opens up the new theme customizer, which is really, really good. It's a fantastic tool. Now, this is the home page, and as you can see, there's lots of different options. There's lots of sections, and you can go in and edit every single thing on your page. So if we look at the text option, for example, you can go in and you can edit the heading. You can edit the text in the middle. You can edit the button. And you can also go in and decide to hide different sections if you want them. If you don't want them displayed, you can add additional sections, and there's a good selection of new sections that you can add. As you can see, there's quite a few different options. So if you come out of this one, you can also customize your header if you want. There's different options for your header, and you can also customize your footer as well. There's just lots of different options in the new tool. But what makes this so much better is this expands beyond the homepage, because with the old setup, you could basically just customize your Shopify homepage, but now you can go through and you can set up your product pages, you can edit your product page template, so you can add additional sections if you want to your product pages, to your pages. It's just basically spread to every page on your site, which gives you so much more control over the look and feel of your Shopify store, which is why the new customizer is absolutely fantastic. I really like using it. It's just so much better the way it works, and it just offers users so much more control and customization over their Shopify store. So next up, let's talk about the support options that are available for both platforms. And when we start looking at the support, it once again highlights the difference between one being a self-hosted platform and the other being a hosted one. Because with PrestaShop, support is quite limited, which is somewhat understandable. It's a free piece of software, and you are limited to just a simple contact form that you can fill out on the PrestaShop site to contact the team behind PrestaShop. And they will either get back to you with some kind of solution or a quote for actually being able to carry out that work, which might not be what you want. You may just want a solution as to how you can do this. But there's no other options available. You can't phone them. There's no live chat available. It's very limited in terms of support options. They used to have it where on their site you could buy a support package, but for some reason they seem to have cancelled that, because when you click on these options in PrestaShop, they just take you to a blank page in the module marketplace. So for some reason they seem to have cancelled this. Now, outside of the direct support options from PrestaShop, there is a community support forum, which may be a great place to ask questions, and they do have some good documentation on their platform, which may be worth going through if you are facing any issues. Otherwise, you've got good old Google, where you can just put in a search term and see if anybody's answered that for you. Now, Shopify, on the other hand, is completely different because they offer 24/7 support to all of their users, and they offer a variety of different mediums that you can actually contact them. You can contact them via the phone, via live chat, or via email. They also have a community support forum, which can be a great place to ask questions. They also have really good documentation as well. But it's this thing that you can actually contact Shopify directly if you're having any issues. Now, the only real downside with Shopify support is actually finding out how to contact them, because they don't make it immediately evident. You have to navigate through the Shopify Help Center to find the options where you can actually speak to a person, because most of the options will just lead you to some form of documentation. But once you know how to navigate the Shopify Help Center, it's quite easy to actually find the options, but they're not available directly in your Shopify dashboard. Right, so next up, let's talk about hosting, because it is quite important, because it's a difference between these two platforms. So if we come down to the hosting section that I've done, it's completely different in the way it works, because with PrestaShop, it all depends on your host as to how good the quality of your hosting is, and whether or not it's PCI compliant, what the uptime is like, and what you get in terms of allocation for bandwidth and storage space. With Shopify, on the other hand, everything is included with your monthly fee, and you get PCI compliant hosting, unlimited bandwidth, unlimited storage space, 99.9% uptime, you get a global CDN, and you also get a free certificate as well, free SSL certificate that is. So you get quite a lot in terms of hosting from Shopify. And let's say with PrestaShop, it all depends on the host you're using as to how good your quality of hosting is, and whether or not it's suitable for running an e-commerce store. And that's why if you're planning to use PrestaShop, you do need to put the research in to make sure you're finding a good quality host to run your store, because it can be the difference between your site working properly or not working at all. So now let's have a look at what these two platforms are like to use, because I'd imagine that's probably what you want to know. And to start with, we're going to talk about what it's like to get started with these two platforms. Now, when it comes to setting up PrestaShop, it is a more involved process, because you first need to buy yourself some hosting, you then need to install things like SSL certificate on your domain name, and then you need to install the PrestaShop software. So it's a much more involved process. It's not just a case of signing up and you're good to go. And you may want to speak to your host about potentially getting some help with this to make sure you've got it set up properly. Now, some hosts out there will install the software for you, other hosts will leave you to do it yourself. But once you've gone through and set up PrestaShop, you'll be taken through to your dashboard. So if we go back into PrestaShop, go into the dashboard, this is the home page. Now, when you first log into PrestaShop, you'll actually be greeted by a short setup wizard, but I haven't got that now because I've already been through it. But it is a pretty good setup wizard, and it will actually take you through and show you how to set up things like product pages and things like that. It's a very in-depth setup guide, and it is really, really good. And anybody who's going with PrestaShop, I would recommend going through this setup process, because it just gives you a few ideas as to how to actually use PrestaShop. But the dashboard itself is pretty easy to use. You've got a main sidebar navigation, and this is pretty well labeled. The only thing I don't really like about this is the dashboard homepage, because you have no real control over it. You can't choose what you have displayed and what you don't have displayed. And it just feels a little bit cluttered to me. There's a lot of information going on, and the information that I would possibly want isn't immediately available to me. So I just feel this is a little bit too cluttered for me. But overall, it's not the worst dashboard I've ever used. But what about Shopify? Well, I'm going to have to go into a different Shopify store on this one because I've already completed this in my other store. But signing up with Shopify is so much simpler. You just go to Shopify using my link in the description below if you wouldn't mind, and sign up. All you need is an email address and a password, and you'll be asked a few questions about where your Shopify store is currently at to help you get started with Shopify. And then when you go through the sign up process that takes a couple of minutes, that's the maximum, you get to go into your Shopify dashboard and you're greeted by this short setup guide, which is a lot better than it used to be. With the new OS 2.0, they have updated this setup guide, because it used to just be, I think it was 3 sections as standard, which was a bit too basic for me, but the new one is much better. Now, the only thing missing from this setup guide for me is the prompt to set up your shipping options. It's a bit of a strange one that they left that out. Don't know why they did that. But overall, it's a pretty good setup guide, and it'll take you through all the basic steps to get your Shopify store up and running. And the Shopify dashboard is a really nice place to be. It's got a very almost minimalistic feel to it. You're not being bombarded with information. There's just a nice simple layout, and all the sidebar navigation is well labeled. It's just a really nice place to be, and I think it just takes it over PrestaShop when it comes to its homepage. Right, so next let's look at managing our inventory, because this is somewhere where you're probably going to spend a lot of time in your dashboard. So if we go back into PrestaShop, go into catalog, click on products, and we're going to add a new product. And the layout of this page is pretty good actually. I quite like it. It's got a tab layout for all the different sections, but what is nice is they haven't overfilled every section. It's very simple in the different options that are available, because some platforms out there have a tendency to put too many options available, which can make it quite daunting for people when they're just getting started. PrestaShop have kept things very, very simple, and the tab structure is very, very easy to use. And you just go through on the basic settings. You can basically set your product up from here, to be honest. You just select the image that you want, add a summary, description, enter the product name, select if you want it to be a simple or a product with combinations, and then set the price and choose the category, and you're basically good to go. And then you can just go into these if you want to add a bit more detailed information. But overall, very simple page to use, very easy to use. Next up, let's talk about setting a product hierarchy. So organizing your products basically. Well, PrestaShop have gone for the traditional category system, and this allows you to create parent and child categories. So if we add a new category, it'll bring up this page. Once again, very simple, very easy to use. Just set the name, add a description if you want, and then you can choose where you want this to be a parent category or you want it to be a child category. And this allows you to create a different hierarchy for your products. Next up is managing your inventory. So once you've got all of your products set up, you want to be able to quickly go in and edit all your products should you need to make any changes. And PrestaShop isn't that great for this because the bulk options are really limited. So if I select a couple of products, click on bulk actions, there's not much you can do. You can't go in and edit many of the sections. The closest thing they've got is if you go onto stock, and it'll bring up a list of all of your products, and then you can just edit the quantity using this menu. But if you want to change prices or anything like that, you've got to go in and edit the products individually. You can't just do it from the product overview page, which can add a little bit of time to your management if you need to go through and manage a lot of products in one go. And this is one of the things with PrestaShop all the way around. The workflow just isn't the most optimal. It's quite frustrating in a lot of ways to use. From my experience of testing it out, I find that you're going from page to page to page to try and do things, whereas they could have just combined things into one and it would have just been so much better to use. So that's the basically inventory management with PrestaShop. What's it like to do this on Shopify? Let's go back into my original store because this one's all set up. So if we go into products and we click on an add new product, with Shopify, it's a single page layout. And this just makes it really easy to add a new product because it's got a really just nice flow to it. So you set up your title, your description, then you add your images, or you can add videos if you want to, set up your pricing options, your inventory options, shipping, and then you can do website SEO if you want to at the bottom. So it's a really simple page to use. Now, they haven't gone overboard with options, but they don't need to. All the tools that you need to set up a good product page are there. Now, what about when it comes to organizing your products? Well, Shopify like to do things their own way, and they definitely have done this when it comes to organizing your products into any kind of hierarchy, because they use a collection system. And there's two types of collections you can set up. There's a manual collection, which works in a similar way to a traditional category system, as in you manually add the products to this collection. But then you've got the automated option, and this one does take a bit of getting used to. The reason for this is it works on rules that you set up. So you can set things like product tags, or you can set things to product title so it contains certain words, or you can set it up so it contains certain prices. There's lots of different options when it comes to automated collections, and while these are more complicated to get set up with and learn about, when you actually learn how they work, they can be really, really good, because you can set up multiple different collections and basically products will be automatically added to them. You don't have to go through and add this manually. It just takes a bit more time to actually get it set up. Now, one of the big downsides with Shopify's collections is you can't have sub-collections. The system just doesn't allow you to do this. There's a couple of workarounds so it can appear like this on the front end of your site using the navigation menu or using pages to basically create pages of collections. But in the back end, there's no way of doing this. So you are limited to just basically one level of collections, and then you have to do these workarounds on the front end of your site to make it appear like there's multi-levels of collections. Now, when it comes to managing your inventory, Shopify is really, really good because they have some great bulk tools. So if we go into products, select the products and we click on edit, you can change a lot of different things because there's the fields option, and you can add all of these different fields to your editor. So there's lots of things you can go in and change if you want to, and it just gives you so much flexibility, and there's so many things you can do in bulk. You don't have to go in and edit the products individually. It's just a really, really good bulk editor. So if we go back into products and we go into inventory, there's another bulk editor. They've basically got two if you want to. So this one, what you can do is you can just update your stock quantity, but they have a bulk editor as well. So you can edit the variations. And once again, you've got the field option, so you can add different settings to this. So finally, let's talk about order management, because hopefully that's where you'll spend most of your time once you've got your store set up. So if you go back into PrestaShop and go into orders, we'll see what we can do. As you can see, I've got some demo orders set up here. And if we select these orders, what can we do in bulk? Not a lot. So we can just change the order status. That's all we can really do. It's quite limited as to what you can actually do in terms of bulk options. Now, they do have some other options here. So invoices, this allows you to print invoices for orders. But what I don't like about this is you can only select the date range. You can't select the orders that you want to print off manually. Like if you went into orders and say if I wanted to print the invoices for that one and that one, I can't do that. With the invoices section, you can only choose the date range and then basically filter this out by the order status. It just doesn't work all that well, and it's not the most optimal workflow. Once again, workflow just doesn't work all that well. Now, there is additional options. You can print delivery slips, but once again, it's the same setup. You choose the date range rather than choosing the orders that you actually want to print them off for. But one cool thing is they do have credit slips. So if you issue any refunds, you can issue people a credit slip as well to basically notify them that they've had their refund. But overall, it's just not the most optimal system to me. It'd be much better if they included the option to print invoices, delivery slips, etc. in the bulk option menu here. It would just make it so much better, and once again, not having to move between page and page on PrestaShop, which just seems to add more time to actually managing your store. So let's talk about Shopify on this one. So if we go into Shopify, go into orders, as standard, it's not the best, funnily enough, which you would expect from one of the market leaders. Now, there is some bulk options available. So if we select the orders, you can see the different bulk options we have. We can create shipping labels, which basically we can buy them from our shipping partners. You can change the status of these orders. You can capture payments, and under the more actions option, you can print packing slips. Now, these two options at the bottom are options that are available with a third-party app, because if you want to print order information such as invoices, credit slips, things like that, you're going to need to use a third-party app. Shopify doesn't offer this functionality as standard, so you are going to have to install an additional app if you want that functionality. The only other bulk option that they have in Shopify is you can export the orders, and this exports them in CSV format. So if you're using kind of like third-party order management software or something like that, you can export the order information and then import it to your chosen tool. Right, so those are the two platforms, PrestaShop and Shopify, but which one is the better option? Well, for me personally, there's one clear winner, and that is Shopify. The reason is I just think it offers a much better all-round solution, especially for people who are just getting started with e-commerce, because the whole process is just a lot simpler, from getting started with it to running it on a day-to-day basis. You also don't need as much technical knowledge as well, because basically Shopify takes care of all the technical aspects for you. You can just focus on the business side of things. You don't need to worry about updates, maintaining your hosting, things like that. It's all taken care of for you. And also the actual platforms themselves, using them, I just think Shopify is so much easier to use. The workflow is so much better than it is on PrestaShop. PrestaShop is just frustrating, and it just annoys me that you have to move from one page to another to do really simple things. I just think Shopify is a much better all-round solution, and say especially if you're just getting started with e-commerce. So there you go, there's my conclusion of these two platforms. If you found this video helpful, a like would be absolutely awesome. Also, if you'd like to support the channel, you can do by buying me a coffee using the link in the description below, and that is very, very much appreciated. So thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Stay awesome, and I'll see you in the next one.